Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Joe Tyrrell and welcome back to the Run Off the GP Blog podcast. Charles Leclerc isn't going down without a fight. He battled to the race victory at the Austrian Grand Prix, denying Max Verstappen the W in front of a Dutch heavy crowd. Myself, Cam and Toby will dissect the race at the Red Bull Ring. We'll pick our winners and losers and we'll also look ahead to one of the most boring races of the season, the French Grand Prix. This is the 2022 season, episode 11.
Michael, go on.
That was so not right.
Get in there, Lewis.
George Russell, now qualified Mr. Hamilton.
You are the world champion.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Run Off the GP Blog podcast. It is currently very hot in the UK. I'm suffering, I know that. But we have had a Formula One race this weekend, and Cam and Toby, welcome back. How are you both?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very hot, but I'm doing all right. How are you, Toby?
I am also sweating ridiculously myself, but apart from that, I'm very good, thank you.
Yeah, we complain about the weather when it's too cold, and then when it gets too hot, we're like this. But we have had a race at the Red Bull Ring this weekend, and Charles Leclerc has fought back, lads. A big win for the Ferrari man.
Yeah, it was quite a fun race to watch. Personally, it doesn't top Silverstone for me, but it's definitely up there with one of them. And Charles Leclerc, and I will say Ferrari, did look very strong. Carlos Sainz obviously had a bit of an issue with his engine, which saw his car kind of set alight. But if it wasn't for that, I think it was almost a guaranteed 1-2 for them. But this weekend, it's been quite a fun battle to see between Leclerc and Verstappen. So yeah, I think Leclerc's quite a good victor, and I know for a fact he's very happy because he's had his kind of bad luck for the last couple of races. So apart from that, I think it's just been quite a fun weekend of racing.
Yeah, Cam, a big weekend for Ferrari. But do you agree with Toby? A fun weekend of racing?
Yeah, I think it was, not too bad. Sprint race weekend. Always, well, I prefer it to a normal race weekend because you get an extra kind of race in there rather than a practice session. So I definitely tune in a little bit more. But yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. I think Austria, obviously the 3 DRS zones in a row means there's a lot of overtaking opportunity, which I think we saw a lot of in the Grand Prix itself, less so in the sprint, but the Grand Prix itself, we saw a lot of overtaking, especially in the midfield. There's all sorts going on. And yeah, Charles Leclerc back on track, championship fight. Obviously, after the sprint race, he was saying on his radio, yeah, we've got them tomorrow. It was a little bit unsure because Verstappen looked pretty comfortable in that sprint race. But yeah, Red Bull suffered some tyre degradation, I think, on those hard tyres. Verstappen was just a lot slower than both Ferraris. And it looked like Sainz was going to get Verstappen as well before the engine happened, engine failure. So yeah, I think Ferrari will be very encouraged by the pace they showed around a circuit that Red Bull and Max Verstappen in particular usually sort of dominate. So yeah, good weekend for Ferrari, or, good weekend for Charles Leclerc, I suppose.
As you mentioned there, Cam, a track where Red Bull are normally very, very strong. So it's a bit of a statement win for Ferrari. But it wasn't all plain sailing for them, as Carlos Sainz was arguably hotter than us because his car set on fire, which is not ideal.
No, not at all. I mean, I saw one of my mates was saying how it was Plan E was what Ferrari were going on, and it was just something about the engine there, and I was thinking, oh no. But yeah, it's a bit worrying. We thought maybe, I don't know, but yeah, another reliability issue, another engine problem. And Sainz looked good. He looked pretty quick. I think he was catching the leading pair, catching Verstappen pretty quick, and it was a 1-2. It was a Ferrari 1-2. It was so easy for a 1-2 and sort of let it slip through their fingers. And yeah, they'll be very disappointed because that's when you've got to make count. When Red Bull are having an off day, and Verstappen in particular, that doesn't come along very often at all. So you've got to take advantage, and they didn't quite capitalise as much as they perhaps should have done.
Yep. It wasn't all plain sailing for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz having that engine failure. But really, their main man, Toby, is Charles Leclerc, so they'll be delighted he's back on track.
Yeah, it's important for Leclerc to have got the points, even though it's only I believe it was only like a 5 or 6 point advantage when you include the sprint points as well. But it's points which is pushing him in the right direction. Obviously, they're not going to be happy with the whole Sainz thing. No one will ever be happy with that. But I think they're going to be more annoyed that they lost the points for 1-2 than the fact that they won. I feel like if, say, Verstappen won and Ferrari were 2-3, they would be more happy than a win and a DNF. I know it's kind of quite simple to say, but it's just something that's come to mind there. But I think this could be potentially a turning point for Charles Leclerc. We've kind of been waiting for him to get his victory again. I think it's his first since Australia.
Yeah.
So this could be a turning point. Obviously, I don't know because, like Cam said, there could be some engine reliability issues, but it's just something we've got to wait and see.
Back-to-back wins for Ferrari, so they can't complain too much, but they won't be happy with Carlos Sainz's result after last week's brilliant result at Silverstone. Quickly touch on Mercedes. They've had a weird weekend because they had a really mixed qualifying and sort of mixed first half of the weekend. But to fight back for P3 and P4 after a series of events, which meant their drivers started further down the grid than they'd have liked, a pretty positive result for them.
Yeah, I think it was very encouraging because it looked like they weren't going to have a very good weekend with what happened in Q3, obviously both drivers crashing. And I think that kind of had a real impact on the weekend. I think their Mercedes might have been on sort of closing in on Verstappen if that hadn't happened. Obviously, Russell had the first lap contact with Perez. Obviously, he had to then go pit, change his front running, and had a 5-second time penalty. So that hampered him quite a bit. Lewis obviously started ninth because of what happened in qualifying pretty much. And then they still finished third and fourth. And I don't know, if Verstappen's pace on that hard tyre when he was just losing so much ground, like if Mercedes had been starting maybe, I don't know, fifth and sixth, and they've been right up there, I think and Russell hadn't had that contact and that penalty, I think there's a chance they could have sort of been up there with Red Bull in terms of pace. So they'll be a little bit frustrated, but again, it's another podium for Hamilton. I think that's 3 in a row now. Russell fourth. So you can't complain too much. It's kind of what they're there. And again, they've picked up points on both Red Bull and Ferrari. So
yeah, they made ground. Yeah, they made ground on their rivals. So they will be pretty pleased, especially after the way the weekend looked like it was heading. But Austria is normally a pretty good track for action and drama and excitement. And 2 weeks in a row, we've had pretty good races.
Yeah, I don't think I know we mentioned it a few weeks ago on the podcast. We needed kind of some action to spice up the season, and I don't really think we could ask for much more. I think these last 2 races have been kind of perfect to reignite the fire that the fans have been kind of waiting to see. So no complaints from my end.
None from you either, Cam?
Yeah, no, of course. I think season, we mentioned it last week, season how it was in a little bit of a dry patch in terms of drama, and I think Silverstone provided a lot of that. Austria, was pretty decent, I thought. A lot of overtaking, a lot of stuff happened. Obviously that Mercedes and Red Bull incident again at turn 4, 2 different drivers, but I think obviously those kind of incidents are not what you want, but at the same time it does sort of spice things up a little bit and sort of takes away from the formulaic race that perhaps could have been.
Yeah, we'll get on to some of the winners and losers now, as it was a pretty big weekend for a certain Red Bull driver, a certain Haas driver. So there's some interesting picks for the winners and losers, so we'll get into those now. Toby, I'm going to start with you. I would like your first winner.
Well, I'm going to just chuck a team out there this week, and I am going with Haas. I think it's been one of the best weekends of racing from Haas we've seen in a long time, and just kudos to Mick Schumacher for his, I'm going to say it, is quite excellent racing this weekend. Yesterday in the sprint with his battle with Hamilton was just fun to watch, because if someone told us last week that we'd be seeing Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher holding Hamilton behind for a fair few laps, we would have gone, nah, like you're just waffling. And then it happened not only yesterday, but also today. So I think with a double points finish, I won a bet. So I'm very happy with Haas. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Cam, Mick Schumacher, driver of the day.
Yeah, I think it's been good. We've been slightly critical before the start of this season on Mick. Always held out hope. And I think he's starting to deliver. Obviously, first F1 points at Silverstone and a really, really good drive at Austria. I was so impressed. Like, Haas just had so much pace. I mean, Hamilton said it on his radio. He was just saying how they got so much pace on the straights, and it was true. And obviously, Mick in the sprint was frustrated that he wasn't allowed to pass Magnussen because he felt he had more pace. And then in the race, displayed that at 6th place. Yeah, pretty incredible drive from him. And long may it continue, I think, because it's all the more for it. I mean, I think he's a talented driver, just need to show a bit more consistency, and he's done it 2 weeks in a row. So yeah, fair play to Mick.
Yeah, as I mentioned, driver of the day for Mick, and he's starting to build a bit of momentum, a bit of form, and I'm certainly starting to think that his confidence is there. I think you can see in his body language as well off the track. Cam, sticking with you though, we picked him so often as a winner at the start of the season, so it's nice to see him back there. Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, we'll go. Someone's got to go obvious every week. Title challenge, back on track. And he looked really good. Obviously, he had to pass Verstappen a couple of times on track itself after pitting and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it was really encouraging because not only did he have the pace to beat Verstappen, but he also got overtakes done, which I think is key because we've seen in the past this season, he's been, on the pace, on par with Verstappen, but not being able to actually get a move done, being pretty sort of just held back by Verstappen. And I think it's encouraging for Leclerc himself to know that he can get past Verstappen. I mean, that move down to turn 4 was really good. I love that move. It just sort of came out of nowhere. I don't think Verstappen was expecting it. I wasn't expecting it watching it. I was just thinking, oh, he's just going to go around the corner, he'll wait again for another lap and see it go. And he just went for it. It sort of just Verstappen left the door open a little bit and he caught him sort of unaware. And I think, yeah, that's the kind of racing you want to see from the leaders. And yeah, really impressed with how Leclerc drove. And I'm glad to see that he's pulled a little bit of a gap back to Verstappen. Obviously not too much because Verstappen won the sprint and got fastest lap in second, but, minimal gap and minimal sort of the gaps bridged. And so we'll hope that, again, at France, we'll have some more close battles between them because we haven't seen that too often since the early stages of the season.
Yeah, big weekend for Ferrari, but not all in good ways. But before we touch on the bad ways for Ferrari, Toby, Aston Martin, they are your loser this week.
Yeah, I think it's just to keep it. I love keeping my winners and losers short and sweet. I always say every week, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep this one short. But they just haven't been good this weekend. They both Stroll and Vettel were out in Q1 on Friday. And then in the sprint, to be fair, Lance Stroll got up to 13th. Vettel DNF'd. And then today in the race, Stroll didn't improve. And then Vettel had a spin and a 5-second penalty during the race. The spin really wasn't his fault because it was, I believe, Gasly came into contact with him.
That was all Gasly's fault, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just not a good weekend for Aston Martin, and they're still just nowhere near where we thought they'd be. It's just really not looking good. When I don't really remember. In my mind, I can't remember the last time they scored points.
Yeah, it's not big. Like when they took over from Racing Point, it was like big plans. Aston Martin, iconic brand. We're going to take them back to the top of F1. And I know it takes time, but they're the second slowest car behind Williams.
They got 2 points in at Silverstone with Vettel, which I didn't even know. Stroll got a point in Canada, which I didn't know. And then the only one I can remember was Vettel having a decent race in Baku. But it just seems as though Stroll is really just nowhere near Vettel, and Vettel is still struggling.
Yeah, Stroll's got, I think, 3 points.
Yeah, it's just not looking good for them at the moment. So they really need to try and change their season around after the summer break, I think.
Yeah, you guys already mentioned it, but there was loads of expectation at Aston Martin sort of 12, 16 months ago. And it really has failed to materialise. They are really struggling at times, in my opinion, look the worst car on the grid because Alex Albon sometimes gets that Williams to sort of play ball really and gets it going quickly. But at the minute, Aston Martin look well off it. Cam, Ferrari had a good weekend. Charles Leclerc won. Carlos Sainz failed. And that means the Ferrari engine is the loser this week.
Yeah, I've picked the Ferrari engine as the loser just because it's just frustrating when you see you've got so much potential in the car, you're so quick, and you've got a 1-2 there and you lose it because of reliability issues. And it's not the first time it's happened. Leclerc suffered more this year, I think, reliability-wise, engine problems than Sainz. But it's just, frustrating because he was looking on for another strong result after P2 at Canada, P1 at Silverstone, and then looking like he was going to get P2 at Austria as well. And that's a really impressive set of results if he could have managed that. But yeah, the Ferrari engine didn't want that to happen, and right near the end. And yeah, really frustrating for Ferrari because it's maybe the thing that might sort of harm them in the constructors and maybe even the drivers' championship as well with Leclerc. So Red Bull seem to have fixed their reliability issues. Obviously, Perez retired because of the contact with Russell. And yeah, Ferrari need to... I mean, the only reason Mercedes are even in the fight for the constructors is because they just finished races. They've got a reliable car, and Ferrari at the moment don't quite have that.
Yeah, Mercedes are clinging on to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, giving themselves a little bit of hope just to see if they could close the gap maybe. But that's a huge ask. Ferrari are still quite a long way clear. But if Ferrari keep having these reliability issues, Mercedes are going to get more and more optimistic, and especially as they continue to improve themselves. You mentioned a man there, Sergio Perez. He is my loser. I'm just chucking one in there because I just feel like he's had all right, the retirement wasn't all his fault, but I just feel like he's had a pretty frustrating and disappointing weekend all round from start to finish, really. He received that penalty earlier in the weekend, set him back in qualifying, and he had to retire from the race. One of only 2 retirees, was it?
Yeah, with Latifi and who's the third?
Science.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, of course. So Latifi,
the one I just
Perez.
spoke about.
Yeah. So I actually just thought I'd mention him. He had a really good weekend last week, getting P2 in the end, but a disappointing weekend for him.
He did quite well in the sprint.
Made up places, but he's in a Red Bull. I'm not sure that's and it's around Austria with the DRS, so I think it's quite easy.
To be fair, he did some quite nice overtakes up at turn 3 because it was basically the exact same moves over and over again, and they were nice. But apart from that was really the only positive.
Yeah, a disappointing weekend for Red Bull all round, really, because Max Verstappen failed to win his home race. Well, his second home race, now that the Dutch Grand Prix does exist. But next up, Red Bull have a chance for a redemption in France. So we'll get on now to the French Grand Prix. Lads, the French Grand Prix coming up in 2 weeks' time now. We've just had a double header, Britain and Austria, and then we go back to back, France and Hungary to conclude the first part of the season. France last year was an absolute belter of a race. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen going head to head, toe to toe on split strategies. However, I do feel like it's sort of an anomaly for what Paul Ricard normally is, which is, to put it bluntly, an absolutely shocking circuit and race.
Yeah, I'm not holding out massive hope. So yeah, I think whoever gets pole will be pretty delighted with that. So I think that makes qualifying even more important. Ferrari have typically qualified better, so perhaps that leads in favour of Charles Leclerc, but who knows? But yeah, hopefully it's like we had last year, because I think it was a good race, and yeah, like you say, an anomaly for Paul Ricard.
Yeah, last year was a good race at Paul Ricard, but Toby can mention there, Ferrari's qualifying has been better. Even though that is the case and Paul Ricard might be hard to overtake, do you just think Red Bull's straight line speed and raw pace is too much for them to handle?
Personally, yes. I think Ferrari's straight line speed has got a bit better, but it's still not at the level of Red Bull. It will be interesting to see. I don't really know. I'm kind of just throwing one out there and saying that I think Red Bull could potentially qualify better, but I think it really will just come down to the day, probably the weather as well. If there's any rain involved, then I'd even chuck Mercedes into that mix personally, because they're quite looking forward to Paul Ricard from what I've read. But yeah, I feel like personally Max Verstappen should probably be on pole, but it's just for us to wait and see, really.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how Paul Ricard unfolds, but we can do our best to predict the French Grand Prix. I think my predictions were shocking. I think I predicted George Russell P2, and that went out the window pretty quickly. But Cameron, you have the results for us.
Yes, from the Austrian Grand Prix, our results, if you haven't been aware of our predictions, you get 3 points if you get a correct surprise prediction, 1 point if you get the pole right, and 1 point if you get the winner right. Obviously, sprint race weekend, so we did 1 point for the sprint race winner rather than qualifying itself. And that was the only way any of us scored any points. So Toby and Joe, you both got sprint race winner correct, Max Verstappen. And then you both also predicted Max would win the actual race, so no points there. Joe, like you mentioned, you predicted Russell would score a second place finish. He did not. And Toby, you predicted Alonso would get top 5. Obviously didn't happen with his issues he had. But yeah, you both get 1 point from that weekend. And I don't get any, because I predicted Leclerc would win the sprint and Max would win the Grand Prix. So got them the wrong way around. And predicted a double Alpine top 7, which I think would have happened had Alonso not had issues. But, alas.
Just 1 second. Does that mean I'm still top of the table?
It means you are top of the table. You're on 5 points. Toby's on 4 and I'm on 3.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that a lot. Yeah, predictions. Toby. Give me your winner, surprise, and pole.
So I've just said pole's going to be Verstappen, so I feel like I've got to stick with that. Winner, I'm going to say there's going to be a bit of rain on the Sunday, and it's going to give
Weatherman Toby.
Lewis Hamilton a victory in the wet. And my surprise prediction will be both Mercedes drivers in the top 4.
Yeah, that works. I mean, Lewis winning would be a bit of a surprise right now, but yeah, you can't really do that. So yeah, fair play. I'll kick us off then. Oh, I'll go again now.
No, can you just 1 second? Can you just bear with me, lads? Toby, are you locking those in?
Are you checking the weather?
Yes, yes, I am. So the weather forecast for Le Castellet.
Is it full sun?
It's 2 weeks away.
Oh, it's 2 weeks away. Okay. So we're looking a little bit far into the future. Le Castellet, or Le Castellet, I don't know how you pronounce it, is expecting temperatures of 33 degrees, which feel like 38.
I'm still going with it. There's going to be rain.
Monsoon showers, they're coming.
1% chance of precipitation.
There's going to be rain.
Humidity is 38%. No, it's not low.
I know what I'm predicting.
Yeah. Visibility good.
Red Bull tyre degradation at Austria was not good. So
yeah. Toby's locked in rain. Basically, that's Toby's surprise rain. Cam, we'll come to you then.
Yeah, I think Leclerc's going to get pole because of the weather. I think Leclerc's also going to win the race. And surprise will be that Verstappen doesn't finish in the top 4.
Okay. Verstappen's off the podium. I am going to go with, can I have as my surprise Sebastian Vettel P8 or higher? Is that a surprise?
Yeah, because Aston Martin are pretty dog.
Sebastian Vettel P8 or higher.
Actually, no. You have to say P7.
No.
You made me change.
All right, yeah.
No. P8. McLaren are so much better than Aston Martin.
No. But Ricardo's rubbish this year.
No,
you have
P8,
to change.
I say P8.
All right, no. I'm actually going to accept P7.
Okay.
I'm going to take P7. Aston Martin P7 or higher. Well, Sebastian Vettel, sorry, P7 or higher. I'm then going to go with Max Verstappen on pole.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with a Sergio Perez victory.
Okay, nice. I like it.
Sergio Perez is bringing me home maximum points.
Good luck. I can't see it.
And it's not going to rain. That's my big call for the week. Still feeling confident, Toby?
Yeah.
You know better than the weather app.
Yeah.
I've just looked in the sky and gone, oh yeah, it's going to rain in France in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, lads, thank you for joining me. It's very hot, so I'm going to let you get off, get hydrated, stay cool. It's only going to get hotter this week, I believe. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us, mate.
Thank you, Joe.
As I said, you've been watching the runoff. Enjoy your few weeks. We'll see you for the French Grand Prix. But in the meantime, stay hydrated.
Michael, go on.